Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive into a really fascinating dietary paradox today. We're constantly told that weight loss is just, well, a simple math equation, right? Just stare at your tracking app and make sure your calories in are lower than your calories out. But if that's the absolute unbreakable truth, why do so many strict calorie-counting diets end in total frustration and failure?
To figure this out, I want you to ask yourself a quick question. Can you lose weight eating nothing but junk food? Literally nothing else. Intuitively, we all want to scream, absolutely not. But human biology actually gives us a really complex yes but kind of answer.
To understand the yes part of that answer, we kind of have to contrast two really extreme experiments. You probably remember Morgan Spurlock's documentary, Super Size Me. He ate McDonald's 3 times a day, consuming roughly 5,000 calories daily. And the result? He gained 24.5 pounds, his cholesterol absolutely spiked to 230, and he accumulated fat in his liver. But then, check out Professor Mark Hobbs' famous Twinkie diet. He also ate junk food, Twinkies, convenience store snacks, you name it, but he restricted his intake to just 1,800 calories a day. He didn't gain weight. He actually lost 27 pounds. And not only that, his bad cholesterol dropped by 20%. So on a purely physical level, keeping a caloric deficit did force his body to lose mass, which perfectly validates the baseline premise of calories in, calories out.
We saw this validated again in a recent 30-day experiment documented by Built with Science. A guy named Brendan ate literally nothing but McDonald's for a whole month. By keeping a strict 2,000-calorie deficit anchored by high-protein items, he lost exactly 5 pounds. His body fat even dropped from 23 down to 22%, so yeah, the math definitely works on paper. But paper is very, very different from human biology, and that's exactly where this math collides head-on with human behavior.
Now, let's look at Section 1, the hunger trap, and why the math fails human behavior.
Because while you physically can lose weight on a restricted junk food diet, it is an incredibly miserable experience. This quote from a user on the Reddit r/lose it Reddit community pretty much hits the nail on the head. They point out that sure, a calorie is a calorie for weight loss, but lacking vitamins, variety, and proper nutrients will quickly make you feel like trash. Even Professor Hobb, during his whole Twinkie diet phase, reported feeling starving quite a bit and ultimately just craved a big, fresh salad. That mathematical deficit becomes completely unsustainable when your body is practically begging for actual nutrition.
To really see why this happens, just consider the nutritional profile of a Big Mac. It packs 580 calories, a staggering 1,060 milligrams of sodium, but offers a mere 3 grams of dietary fiber. Heavily processed foods like this are incredibly calorie-dense, but they severely lack the fiber required to actually keep you full. As nutrition expert Dr. Lane Norton observed regarding Brendan's McDonald's diet, lacking fiber and dietary novelty just ruins your satiety. You get hungry so much faster, making the rigid discipline of calorie counting almost impossible to maintain without binging. But, the failure goes much deeper than just willpower. It actually leads us to a massive scientific loophole that your fitness app completely ignores.
Which brings us to Section 2, fiber and hidden calories.
Now, what's really interesting about this is a crucial 2023 study that compared calorie absorption between two groups. Both groups were eating the exact same number of calories, around 2,100 a day. Group 1 ate a highly processed diet with just 6 grams of fiber. Group 2 ate a less processed diet with 26 grams of fiber. Get this, the highly processed group absorbed about 95% of their calories, but the less processed group, they only absorbed 89% of those calories.
And this brilliantly illustrates a completely mind-blowing flaw in our modern tracking systems. On that less processed diet, an extra 116 calories were entirely excreted from the body, literally lost in feces. They never even made it into the person's system. So think about that. 2 people can log the exact same 2,100 calories into their app, but the person eating processed food is biologically absorbing significantly more energy. Nutrition labels simply do not account for excreted calories.
All right, let's look at Section 3, microbiome and metabolic sabotage.
This brings us to a second hidden biological variable. When you eat, you aren't just feeding your human cells, you are feeding trillions of bacteria in your gut. Let's walk through the biological chain reaction of eating processed food. Step 1. Your low fiber and high sugar intake basically starves the good bacteria. Step 2. This triggers gut dysbiosis. Step 3. That imbalance leads directly to systemic inflammation. And finally, Step 4.
This altered internal state actually changes how your body extracts energy and stores fat. Fast food fundamentally manipulates how your body processes the very calories you are counting.
Just to be clear on what's happening here, without sounding too much like a medical lecture, gut dysbiosis is simply an imbalance of your microbes. Modern diets that are loaded with excess sugar, refined starch, and artificial sweeteners actively promote the growth of undesirable bacteria. When you do this, you reduce the production of highly beneficial short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, which are normally created when good bacteria feed on prebiotic fiber. Without that butyrate, you lose a major protector against intestinal inflammation. And the stark contrast in how these bacteria behave is everything. Healthy gut bacteria, fueled by varied plant-based whole foods, may actually increase your metabolism. Unhealthy gut bacteria fed on high-fat processed diets become overly efficient at extracting energy from your food and prompting your body to just store it as fat. Your microbiome completely bypasses the strict math of your calorie app.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. The inflammation factor.
Because the damage of poor calorie quality doesn't just stay in the gut. For example, look at the data from a massive 2025 meta-analysis on processed deli meats. Consuming just 50 grams a day of processed meat increases C-reactive protein, which is a key marker of inflammation, by 38.3%. That is substantially higher than unprocessed red meat or poultry. This inflammation occurs by disrupting the gut microbiota, and remarkably, it retains its inflammatory effects even when researchers adjust for the person's body weight. It's not just about the mass of what you're eating, it's about the internal reaction.
This is exactly why clinical guidelines are shifting entirely away from just measuring food quantities. The 2024 American Gastroenterological Association guidelines explicitly prioritize the quality and source of calories to control inflammation. They state that patients with inflammatory bowel disease should follow a Mediterranean diet low in ultra-processed foods, specifically noting that decreasing processed meat can reduce disease flares. The source of the calorie dictates the disease response, which really forces us to rethink the whole shebang.
Which perfectly sets up section 5, quality over quantity.
So the crucial point is, when we pull all of these threads together, the satiety, the fiber absorption, the gut dysbiosis, and the systemic inflammation, the core issue with traditional dieting becomes incredibly obvious. Calorie counting fails because it measures the food sitting on your plate, not how your biology reacts to it once it's actually inside you. Human metabolism is simply not a pocket calculator. 2,000 calories of fibrous whole foods will digest differently, absorb differently, and trigger entirely different hormonal and bacterial responses than 2,000 calories of highly processed fast food.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. If a calorie isn't just a calorie once it's interacting with your unique microbiome, your digestive tract, and your immune system, what on earth is your calorie counting app actually measuring? It might be time we stop obsessing over the math and start focusing on the actual biology of what we eat. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this transforms how you look at your next meal. Catch you next time.